problem. Hello again. I'm Rachel Shoemaker with the Texas Veterans Commission. Welcome to everyone who's here today. As Sam was saying, we are encouraging participation through social media. As you can see, we have a hashtag up there for Twitter, and you can also follow that hashtag on Facebook. As they were saying, you know, the Bexar County Veterans Court has a Facebook page, and Facebook does now do hashtags, so y'all can also hashtag anything that you've learned here today on Facebook, and it will show up through that as well. But we, as Sam said, we really want to encourage participation. We're looking for things that you've learned, any new tidbits that you have. I didn't know that there were 20 veteran courts, so that's something new I've already learned today. Also, if you would like to film any of yourself, just saying, 30-second, that this is what I've learned, we will be collecting all of those and putting them on our Facebook page, the Texas Veterans Commission Facebook page. Just show a little bit about what everyone's learned during these great 3 days, and I'll go ahead and turn it back over to Sam. If y'all have any questions, I will be around. If there's anything you want to learn, you can just come up to us, or want to say that you learned, you can just come up to us and we will film it and post it on there. If you don't have a Twitter or Facebook page, we want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and that this conversation is really, or this conference is really just the beginning of the conversation. So.
Do me a favor, look that back on the mic stand since I'm here. Thank you so much. So it's real exciting to use the latest technology to share and to push out what it is that we are learning. Also, we have tried to keep as much paper as we can to a minimum. And so we are posting all of the presentations as we receive them, and many of them we have received. And so those are put up on a website that was pushed out to you prior to coming here. And for those of you who have devices and want to download it, if you haven't already, you can do that. And some of those, I'm sure, will be being posted as we go throughout the course of the conference. And so that's one way to get the PowerPoints and handouts that people have. There are CEUs for all of the sessions. And so when you went to the registration desk, if that's something that you want or need, you should have picked up some duplicate pieces of paper that you're going to have to fill out and turn in to the CEU station. And also you're going to need to have signed in to verify that you were actually in each of the sessions that you go to. And there will be some volunteers in each of those sessions reminding you to sign in, and then again you'll turn in your CEU forms at the end of the day, at the end of the conference. There are also CLEs for the attorneys in the room, and Karen with TVC lined those up, and if you're in the Vet Court conference part of this, you will hear about those and can sign up for those. So just real quick, in your program, the Texas A, that whole column on the conference at a glance, is a Vet Court track. And so TVC, with Karen taking the lead for them, has put together a remarkable set of workshops to inform folks who really want to learn how to do a vet court and to hear what your partners across the state are doing with their vet courts. Now, having said that, I want to, this is where the challenge comes in. This is a brochure that many of you hopefully picked up at the registration table, and if you didn't, you should get one. And what this is from the GAIN Center, which is a national center that does technical assistance on jail diversion for people with behavioral health disorders. And one of the things that they do specialize is look at service members, veterans, and their families. And so they do a lot of work. In fact, they've been the technical assistance center for our work in our jail diversion trauma recovery for veterans work here in the state of Texas. It's been very helpful. And so I'm going to try and work the technology here. Realized after we had put all this together and built this conference around what we call the Sequential Intercept model, that we needed to at least point you to what that was in case you weren't familiar with it. How many of you have heard of the Sequential Intercept model that the Gaines Center has put out? Great. I see a lot of hands. That's a good thing. This model is a planning tool. It is not a service model that says this is absolutely how you do it. What it is a model to think about the various points that you can intercept people who get involved in the criminal justice system and provide them treatment when treatment is the more appropriate alternative to further penetration into that criminal justice system. And there are good reasons to do this. And just real quick, I'm going to give you a slide that I picked up that refers to the collateral consequences of criminal conviction. Okay, so there are lots of consequences once people start getting involved in the criminal justice system. So my challenge to you is to divert at the earliest point possible along the sequential intercept model so that you can minimize these collateral impacts to the extent possible. Having said that, let me go back for just a minute and talk about this so that you at least have it. And I'll tell you, in the brochure, one of the nice things they've done is across the top, they talk about the system level changes, the actions you can take to address system level changes. Across the bottom, under each intercept point, some of the service level strategies that you can employ to do that, okay, to do diversion at each of those intercept points. People move through the criminal justice system in a somewhat logical, sequential fashion. And so understanding that is one way that you can better do what you do. And so if you find yourself that your expertise in the work and the job that you have is at one point or another, think about what's happening further upstream. And is there a way to address the problem further upstream? And so Intercept 1 is that initial contact with law enforcement. So there are training programs that you can hear about at this conference and in other service settings that if law enforcement trusts and feels it appropriate, they can do the diversion right then and there if your community has that available to them. If you don't, then you're going to move on to the next intercept point, which is intercept point 2, the initial detention, initial court hearings part. This is Hank Stedman, who runs the Gaines Center, says this is one of the most underutilized points on the sequential intercept model. And so I would encourage you to think about the pre-trial kinds of diversion strategies that are available to you and look at, are you doing that for the veterans that come into the system? And we've already heard some about vet courts, and that's intercept point 3. So folks in jail and going into specialty courts, that's our veterans court. One of the things that I would encourage you to think about, if you don't have a veterans court, and politically or for whatever reason aren't able to do that, look at other specialty courts you have and say, can we have a veterans track within that? So if you have a drug court or a mental health court, maybe there are some ways to do some specialized things within that without building other infrastructure. And I can tell you, this state has taken on vet courts in a very robust way. I was in a national meeting 2 weeks ago, and California was there. They have 18 courts, okay? And they're quite a bit bigger than we are population-wise. And they're very interested in the work that we are doing, and they say they steal from us regularly, including the program for helping vets get their claims processed. They have learned from us on that. So that's Intercept 3. Intercept 4 is your re-entry point. So folks who are incarcerated, when they come out, you want them to come into a supported setting where their needs are met so they don't end up right back in an incarcerated setting. And so we have presentations on all of these, and we have both local reentry presentation and both state level coming out of prison. And then community supervision is the last one, which something that I hadn't thought about, but was pointed out again by Hank Stedman, was that often that's the front door to jail for a lot of folks who've been in. So people come right back in through that. So what are we doing in our supervision to really take care of the veterans we have, give them the right service at the right time, the right way, so that they can avoid incarceration. So that's the sequential intercept model in a quick run through. You've got this information, and I believe if we don't have it posted, we will post an article that talks in detail about this model. I like to think of it, and Patty Griffin, who's one of the co-authors on this, they have an image in there of a funnel, with intercept 1 being this part, and there are filters all the way down. So hopefully you're catching most people early on when it's appropriate and taking care of their needs there before they get further into these sequential intercept points. So that's the challenge I would offer you, is to listen and learn and think about what are we doing in our communities, and can we do things in all intercepts to do the best job possible. Another thing that's going on during this conference is that we have a group here that generously donated their time to do this work. And these are folks, a team of folks from the Meadows Foundation Mental Health Policy Institute. If you all would raise your hands, this front row up here, sitting on the front, not the back, these folks will be stationing themselves throughout the workshops to listen to what are the policy issues and practice issues that come up. And then our closing plenary, Dr. Andy Keller will be doing a summation of what they have heard. Now, a lot of that will be going on in the tweets that you're going to be doing, right? So a lot of folks will know about that. But we're going to have him do that, and then we've got a panel of experts to react to that and to offer their own perspective. And they all come from various perspectives around the criminal justice system and around veterans and around treatment for them. So stick around for that last session. Now, at this point, I want to turn it over to something much more interesting than me, and that is a group of veterans who have served our country and who are here to talk about their experience and remind us and share their stories and remind us of why we even do this work and what's important about it. So our veterans' perspective is going to be led off by Tony Solomon. And Tony is the Harris County Veterans Behavioral Health Director for Mental Health America of Greater Houston. He coordinates the Harris County Veterans Court mentoring team. He and his colleagues, Lex Loya and Duane Perez, are some of the passionate and dedicated veteran mentors. And Tony tells me they're the best jail diversion team in the nation. Now, I'll let you all decide about that. And Judge Russell isn't here to defend that, but I'm going to go with that for right now. So they really strive to empower and support veterans and their family members in the Harris County Veterans Court so that no veteran is left behind. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Tony Solomon.
Thank you, Sam. Before we introduce ourselves, I just wanted to thank all of you in the audience. Thank you for all being here and for caring, because we're dealing with a lot of issues right now that our men and women are coming back with and dealing with. And for all of you being here with your time, with your organizations, with your money, we appreciate it, and we've got a lot of work to do to end lots of the crises and suicides and lives that are being destroyed and ruined because of poor decision making or not enough education or not enough outreach. And it takes it could just that one impact, imparting a little bit of nugget of information onto somebody can change their lives and make them wake up in the morning and want to go out and be a better person and be a better individual, and not let the trauma they've experienced downrange affect the rest of their lives. But I'd like to let my friends introduce themselves right now. This is Lex. I'll let Lex introduce Lex.
My name is Lex Loya. I served as a Marine, machine gunner, did 2 tours Iraq, and I got out and was not a very good civilian, and really had just had everything lined out of what I was going to do with my life, and on terminal leave, got UWI, and at the time there wasn't a Harris County Veterans Court or anything like that. But I'm a mentor with Harris County because I went through Veterans Court, and it was was about the only thing that kept me from going into prison. That's where I was going. So, yeah, I'm very adamant about it. I work for U.S. vets, do peer support with them, and go now and go into different prisons and facilitate groups, stuff like that, to try to be that interaction or the person that can stop some of this, offer my stories in a sense to show that there's hope. It doesn't have to be, all is not lost, and that's kind of what I do and how I got into this.
Hello, everyone. All right.
Let's do it this way.
There we go. Try it again. Okay.
Duane Perez, United States Marine Corps, retired. 0311, 0313. Retired E5 as crew commander, 1st Marine Corps Division, Special Operations Command, 13th, 15th Marine Expeditionary Unit, Persian Gulf War veteran. I found my way into Harris County Veterans Court by really unintentionally actually. And I had a pending felony criminal mischief charge. That's kind of a tongue twister for me. I graduated Harris County Veterans Court early and received early probation determination. I see our Harris County Veterans Court program manager sitting here in front of me, which gives me a lot of encouragement. Good to see you, Ms. Covington. I was asked by her to come back for any friends of Bill. That is not an unfamiliar phrase. So what I had learned was, well, that's what you do. You just do what works, and you keep coming back. So I did, and I said, well, what do I have to do? Where do I, this pretty much the same, going into Veterans Court, okay, what do I have to do? Where do I sign? And I focused on the donut and not the hole. So in a nutshell, I just keep coming back, and I bring my experience, strength, and hope. And I heard someone say earlier on Mother's Day, sometimes every year it seems to be getting a little easier. Well, sometimes we lie to ourselves, and we fake it until we make it. I keep thinking it's going to eventually get a little bit easier, not for them, for me. Just going, it takes a long time to find yourself in a special program such as drug court or the Harris County Veterans Court. And it takes equally, if not more, time to repair the damage that's been done. I keep that in mind when the veterans are coming into the court. I purposely forget I think. Maybe it's a mental block. I still cannot remember what floor I'm supposed to go to. I do what works. And I sent in, remember sending in an email to Mrs. Covington. I don't know what we have to do, but I'm an advocate of what works. Let's just get people to show up and see what it is that the veterans have to go through. We didn't have very much of a veterans mentorship program when I went through. So we're hitting the ground running. So I am going to pause there and hand the microphone back over to Tony. But before I do that, sir, over there in the corner, can you hear me? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Duane. As you can see, these are some incredible men right here who've gone through a lot and are now giving back a lot of their time and a lot of their experiences to help a lot of brothers and sisters who need it. What we're going to do right now is I'm going to give a little overview of what we're doing in Harris County in terms of our mentoring program, and then I'm going to get into a little bit in a discussion with Lex and Duane about their experiences with Harris County Veterans Court going through the program, and then coming out as a graduate, as a mentor now, and what it's like working with young men and women who are going through the program now. So I coordinate the mentoring program through Mental Health America of Greater Houston. We approached Harris County Veterans Court last fall, and it's essentially some volunteers that said, what can we do to make this mentoring program strong, viable, and sustainable in Harris County? And so we had a series of meetings with the jail diversion team, and they really liked what they heard. And what we proposed to them was, how can we be the community coordinator, the mentoring, training, education hub for peer mentors, and then at the same time provide solid, reliable crisis intervention when necessary and information referral resources. So what I started doing was I just started showing up at Veterans Court and just analyzing logistically what it was like, what the veterans were going through, trying to see what gaps in services were there. And I began to see that, and then also speaking with existing mentors. A little background on Harris County Veterans Court. It's always had graduates who come back to the program and give it back. It's a very close-knit unit that where people have their lives changed for the better, and it's really emotional. It's really deep. It's really, you see recovery. You see folks going through sobriety and the struggles of sobriety and repairing interpersonal relationships, family relationships, getting their lives back on track. And so for some, they've had such an incredible recovery that they want to give back. So I said, the cornerstone of this mentoring program needs to be graduates, and I'm not a graduate of this program. The cornerstone of it needs to be graduates of the Veterans Court program giving back. And so what do we have to do? We have to train them. What do we have to train them in? At a basic level, we need to certify them in peer-to-peer. Next up, we need to certify them in how to respond to family resiliency and improve and work with family members and build those relationships back up again. Next up is, what can we do for domestic violence and battery intervention? That's one of the that's an underlying issue with the court and participants in the court. Next up is emotional intelligence, understanding that many of our veterans are coming back with anger management issues and not being and coming back being very susceptible to risky behavior. And so we have to mitigate that through proper decision making. And thankfully there is an organization in the community that provides that training to post 9/11 veterans. So what I did is I reached out to all the mental health associations and nonprofits that I know of that are subject matter experts. Why duplicate what everybody out there is already doing? And so essentially create this collaboration of community organizations that are able to bring at PhD level clinicians and educators to the mentoring program and offer to train us, the mentors, how to better serve all the participants in Harris County Veterans Court. So with that, we've formed some incredible partnerships with the Military Veteran Peer Network, Michael E. DeBakey VA Medical Center, U.S. Army Assist, Interfaith Samaritan Center, Hope for the Warriors, and Aid to Victims of Domestic Abuse. With those organizations right there, they were able to dedicate their staff and their time free of charge. We signed MOUs and we said, we're going to create this curriculum. We were shooting for a week-long training program where we could get our mentors trained up on all these different modules so that this can be a well-rounded cohort of peer mentors that are ready to give back and provide high-level, high-touch service to the veterans of Veterans Court. And so I want to, maybe digress a little bit and say we're a work in progress. We're trying to adhere to guidelines set forth by the community blueprint and the sequential intercept model, and then take the best of mental health education that's out there and impart that on our mentors, understanding that mental health education and crisis intervention is absolutely necessary for a successful peer mentoring program. And then at the same time, not just letting anybody come in off the street and be a peer mentor. You have to be able, with this program, number one, we want veteran court graduates who are ready, who maybe the court has identified, or maybe it's a relationship we have developed and mentored ongoing, that they want to give back. We want people who want to be there. We want to work with organizations who want to be there. It's not about, you may want to partner with a particular organization because they have a plethora of resources, but at the same time, if it's difficult to work with them, don't waste your time. You want people who are passionate and dedicated to the mission. And the mission is supporting Harris County Veterans Court, supporting the jail diversion team. So then, to make what we're doing as official as possible, we began working with just the Harris County Attorney's Office and formulating an MOU so that we have this mutual relationship and make it official so that we can legally be covered on all ends. And I'm a firm believer that maybe it doesn't have to be necessarily a veteran service organization. My organization, Mental Health America Greater Houston, we've been an education and advocacy organization since 1954, but we really never provided direct services. I come from a direct service background, but this was new territory for my organization, so it's really exciting that we're able to go out there and truly, people talk about collaborations, people talk about partnerships. Right now, I've got 5 different organizations working without receiving compensation to support transitioning veterans and those veterans in this treatment program. So it's really inspiring, really motivating. And so with this team, we've got now, my team is small right now. It's these 2 gentlemen right here and 4 others. And we're not going to rush it. We're not going to go out there and say we've got 10 or 15 peer mentors that are trained and ready to go. We're ready to bring on people when they are ready and when we feel they are ready. And when Judge Carter, our special courts coordinator, when they say, please reach out to this person, they might make them a good mentor. And then we'll recruit them and we'll see where their heart is. Just because someone says they might make a good mentor doesn't mean that they'd be a good one. And then we have to evaluate them, how it goes with their training. And with doing some of the suicide prevention training that we've done, it brought up a lot of skeletons in our closet, and it was a hard time just for peer mentors. So then I had to take a step back and say, all right, now we need, I need at a clinical level a support system just to support the mentoring team, and thankfully I found that through a social worker at the VA. So now I've got this liaison at the VA who's providing LCSW support to the mentoring team when we don't know what to do. So we always have these checks and balances and chain of command, so to speak, in regards to how to work with different individuals in delicate situations. So in part of being in docket, in Harris County Veterans Court has about 64 veterans in docket, and then at the same time they've got, it meets twice a month. So in seeing that, I said, how can I impart information, resources, and then at the same time, mental health tips and wellness tips to all these veterans that maybe necessarily don't want to hear it. And so I noticed that everybody before docket is just talking on their phones and talking to their buddies. And so what I started to do was I just typed up a weekly newsletter, just front and back, a one-pager, to try to get their attention. And the first couple times when I'm in court, you know, at the end of court, people were just going like this, leaving it at the bottom of the seats on the ground. As we started making relationships and building those relationships, people started to look forward to this newsletter, and they're coming up to me to ask for it. What I put in this newsletter, I put in here tips about what we're trying to do, what we're trying to accomplish with them, fitness tips, health and wellness tips, and at the same time, impart all the community resources that are in town with upcoming events and listing them for those veterans in the court. Now, our court has post 9/11 veterans, Korean War veterans, Vietnam War veterans, all demographics, all socioeconomic, all ethnicities, very diverse and very representative of Harris County. And so, knowing that not everybody has an email or access to social media or the internet, where lots of traditional VSOs are marketing their programming to, this was an opportunity for them as a captive audience to start learning about other organizations in town. And I took it a step further before docket, and I started bringing in community service providers, our county service officer, different nonprofits, different universities, and then soon employers that are ready to hire veterans. And just taking the time to personally talk to these veterans prior to docket, because they're there 30 minutes prior, and just to impart their programming, whatever opportunities, whatever events coming up to these veterans. And guess what? The veterans are receptive to it. Now, not all programs are some veterans receptive to, but there's always a couple interested veterans. And I just brought one university over to the court, and out of that, the following Friday, I took 2 veterans over to the University of Houston downtown and introduced them to their veteran service officer at the university, and then to 2 program heads of their respective programs that they wanted to pursue, perhaps. And so, being able to do that as a mentor is very rewarding. And this was at the same time an opportunity for them to, they were like, thank you, somebody cares, somebody's trying to help me get where I want to be. And that's what it's all about. So we've got the newsletter. We're bringing in community providers, employers, university, everything related to the transition. We're going to be doing family programming. And so with that, what else do you need? We need to start doing events outside of court to bring the veterans together, be able to decompress, build some camaraderie, build some socialization skills. And so, so far we've done just one post-docket social, but out of that post-docket social has led to so many ideas about what the veterans want to do next. And what was the next idea? They want to do a paintball tournament. So this June, we're going to do a paintball tournament. At the same time, my organization is out there writing grants, and we're writing grants so that I can fill any needs the court has. And what the court asked, in speaking with the jail diversion team, they said it would be great to have a petty cash fund for emergency financial assistance to cover those incidentals that not necessarily other organizations that do provide emergency financial assistance are able to cover. Because these veterans going through this program are going under intense therapy, and their time is taken up by a lot of programming and all in their individual contracts that they have within the program, they don't have a lot of time to be going to service organizations and filling out paperwork and enrolling in some sort of program to receive a little bit of benefit. And if we can impart that as a mentoring team, and they are able to come to the mentors and call us and tell us, hey, I need money for my utilities, I need money for this, or hey, because of what I'm going through right now, I just lost my job. This is an opportunity for us to be able to be there for them and ensure that, and empower them so that they can successfully go through the different phases of this program and graduate. Let's make their lives as easy as possible and not add another layer of what's out there, because their lives are just as intense enough going through this program. It's a voluntary program, and they know that their time is being taken up, and yeah, they could do jail time, but at the same time, and be done with this and not be in a treatment program for 2 years or longer. But we're here as mentors to be, it's kind of a judgment-free zone. All right, we're here to help you. There's no consequences when you talk to us. Meanwhile, when they talk to other folks on the jail diversion team or the judge, there are consequences to talking to them. But by being relatable, being mentors, we're able to be there for them. And really excited about that. So with this, we've received already a lot of community support in Houston. And so we've received 3 grants, and we look forward to doing extensive family retreats. And mind you, all these retreats have to be alcohol-free. You know, lots of people give tickets out to ball games or this and that, but the mentors actually have to go. The mentors need to be there, and we need to not necessarily be chaperones, but be there for each other and for the veterans. So just to provide support and let them know it's all right. And guess what? When we did that one docket social, a couple veterans got hemmed up, and they were not compliant with the court. And those were the veterans that came to the deli that evening and had some dinner. And it was an opportunity for them to blow off steam and to talk about what made them not compliant that month. And it was really interesting, and I learned a lot about them. And these guys were there, and all right, that's a phone. Never mind. Lost my train of thought. But yeah, it was. It's an opportunity for the veterans and their family members. We invite their family members out, and so we're providing resources to the family members. And I ask them, what do you need? That's the number one thing. As a mentor, you're there to listen, number one. Not to tell your story, not to be a barracks lawyer, not to think you know it all. You're there to listen, number one. And as you listen, you begin to find out a lot of their needs. And through that, I'll call you back on Monday. These are the organizations you need to speak to. This is a positive handoff with a name and a number of a person that's going to answer a phone. Don't just spout off information generically that is of an organization that you know that may help for a particular transition issue. Have a name, have a number, and take that next step and say, call up that social worker or that administrator and say, hey, this veteran's going to reach out to you. And just in case they don't reach out to you, here's their contact info. Why don't you be proactive and reach out to them if you don't hear from them? And so in working with the Military Veteran Peer Network and working with our other community agencies, I feel like we've established a system of care that is strong, that is there, and by providing as much training through our training partners for our mentors, and as we build our mentoring team, I'm really excited about what's in store for the veterans and their families of the Harris County Veterans Court. I feel like I've talked enough. We also want to open this up for questioning later on, but right now I want to ask Lex and Duane some questions and just about their personal experiences and give them a little bit of, to impart their experiences and share with you. So guys, knowing that Harris County Veterans Court is optional, why did you decide to join this program?
Initially, my reasoning was pretty much everybody's reasoning. It's to get out of jail. It was pretty easy. My attorney had been a Marine, and he basically come in and went, "This is what you're going to do because this is what you need to do, to get your life back in order." So that was mine.
This is the way it was presented to me. We are going to give you the tools to succeed. No one ever in my life had ever given me that offer. Or go to jail. It was a no-brainer.
All right, what were your initial impressions during your first phase of court?
The initial start of it, the first phase of going through the first and the second phase are a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of time spent at the VA, days spent at the VA, and it's designed for that. It's designed that's how I look at it. I look at it as you're either going to do it or you're not. It's like almost like a boot camp. This is going to be the weeding out process. Who really wants to do something? Who really wants to change their habits and their way that they're living? So, it's a lot. It asks a lot of you, but you get out of it what you put into it.
got stuck on the last question. You know, I got myself thinking, did I say survive or did I say succeed? Okay, good. I was worried. So, what was the question?
What were your initial impressions while you were in the first phase?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Very much so. How did I allow myself to get to this point? What happened? Mind you, I was still detoxing when I was in Veterans Court, which is, you know, a huge gray area, kind of a no-no. Thank God for Congresswoman Sheila Jackson. Made some phone calls. I was prescribed some really good stuff, and it was all legal because I had a doctor's prescription. And yeah, so question marks there. So when people were talking to me, we were trying to get a packet together. The district attorney was, you know, like, he was kind of like standing over me, and I heard, you know, the person on the phone from the Peanuts. Wah, 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 wah. And you know, I had some type of working relationship with my attorney. And I would turn to her and say, "What did he say?" It was, and of course you can kind of see my reaction with my colleagues and my brothers here that I have to bounce off of. And I very much also am bouncing off of all of you to get through being up here and being a little bit nervous, and my dog laying on my feet also helps. Who also, by the way, we just recently got certified as a team before coming here, and who also has helped me be an instrumental mentor in Veterans Court program, and also he influences the other guys, and really changes the energy of the room, so I'd introduce him, but he's working right now.
That's awesome. All right. What demands or strains on your personal relationships, your families, did this program, this opportunity present?
For me, I lived an hour outside of Houston and did not have my driver's license anymore. So, and it was one of the things that it was absolutely horrible. My mother had to drive me to the VA, had to drive me to court, and that's where I met Duane. But it ended up being a wonderful thing so far as my family relationship, because for me, family was very few people had ever been in the military, and so everything that happened to me, everything that I did was just me. It was just me. There was nobody else. I was just, you know, being, not a very good person, I guess. So I'd spend an hour drive, and for the first month, by the time we got to Houston, it was just let me out. I'll be homeless. I don't care. And through having to go to the VA and my mother kind of being forced to be involved around other veterans is when it finally started sinking in so far as, it's not just me. And I went through the same course of going, this is all my stuff, I have these problems, and nobody else I served with, it's just me, it's all mine. But you find out when you open up and make yourself available that there's quite a few people that have to go through, and everybody's different, and not everybody goes my wonderful course, but everybody handles things, and or they don't. So, I mean, that was one of the things that, I mean, it put a lot of strain, and then it made things better. You know, it changed my whole family structure because I became a better person. I responded to things better, and I didn't deal with things in a not as negatively. So I guess that's.
Thank you, Lex. I spit it out. I lost everything. My real pretty antique car, lost my home. Never mind that it was a penthouse on Sunset Street. My motorcycle job. What strained my support system, being that, you know, my family of origin, when I stopped, I was no longer invited to family functions. As I look at my notes, you know, like, I'm actually looking for, you know, some feedback. I was just taking a moment to take a deep breath. Burned bridges with any friend that I thought I had. But that was before the Veterans Court program happened. And then the family started to kind of see, you know, there's a story entitled "The Family Afterward" that I was told to read. Because you know, tied to everything else, it developed, you know, then you learn you have a learning disability, and I'm much better with, I can hear, and I learn better that way. So it took a while for the family to kind of realize the change and the effort that I was putting forth. And I was a little disgruntled. I'm like, do you have any idea what I've been going through every day? You know, I've got so many case managers I can't even count on two hands. So when they finally come around, but I realized that then I have to learn boundaries, and they have to, and by setting boundaries, I teach other people how to treat me. Before, you know, it's like, bleh, you know, and, you know, so take care of, you know, me sort of thing, and that just is very unhealthy. So anyway, that's all that I'm going to comment on that. Go ahead, Tony. Next question.
Thanks, Duane. So I know we're coming up on time, so I've got 3 more questions for you guys. And these are a little more lighter. What is being a mentor mean to you?
Being a mentor is making yourself available to you've already been through the process, and you know what's going on, and you know where the frustrations will come in and where there's gaps. One of the things with Veterans Court is you're just completely micromanaged the first 2 phases. Then by the third thing's free up, you have more room to hang yourself if you're going to go that route, or you have more room to continue on and stay up, go a positive route. But those gaps is where a lot of guys will fall short. I mean, they'll get because they've had the freedom, kind of things returned back. Our role as a mentor my role is just to try to fill in, be a friend. I'm not there to drop dimes on people, so to speak, or you know, because that's one of the things that has come up when I started, because I had just left the Veterans Court as well, and a lot of guys were going, oh well, you know, you're work for the court now, you know, and that's not the case. It's not the case, and but like everything, it just takes a little bit of a process to go through it.
One thing I'd like to add is our mentoring program at Harris County is absolutely optional. It is not mandatory. There's no pairings of anybody to anyone. We develop these relationships organically. In the beginning, for example, I used to show up kind of like business casual, and people wouldn't talk to me. Then I started wearing jeans. People started talking to me, and I started being a little more relatable. And really, it's when you're establishing this camaraderie and this trust with people, just be yourself is the best advice I can impart. Use your training and make sure you get as best of training as possible, and be yourself, and don't try to be anybody that you're not. And just like he said, the veterans are worried that mentors are out there conspiring against them to work with the judge or their caseworkers to get them in trouble or find out if they've done anything to make them non-compliant. And that's not the case. So as you go and develop your mentoring program or expand it, just be cognizant of that. Duane, what does it mean to be a mentor for you? You're a damn good one.
Oh, thank you very much for saying so. That remains to be seen, however. Being a mentor for me is, I will quote a veteran that called me when I was kind of in a rough spot and said, I couldn't believe the words that I was hearing. If I had anything close to a friend that you are, before, I would not be in the trouble that I'm in now. I'm like, whoa, really? So I will add that being a mentor with my experience as a graduate helps me stay connected. It helps me to grow. As I mentioned before, when I introduced myself, it took a long time for me to get to find myself into Veterans Court. And it's not going to fix itself overnight. I'm not going to fix myself overnight. So by working with other people, with my brothers and sister veterans, I learned what it is to be that. I do that by being honest, as the very first principle of recovery. I've lied to myself most of my life. And by learning to be honest with a brother veteran, I learned to build trust. And before, it was when I first started coming back, I had Veterans Court staff members, coming, telling me, you have a responsibility. I'm like, wait a minute, I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. And I went through the Mankind Project, and I learned about how to process. And so I've been utilizing these processes into being a mentor, what it is to be a man in today's society, and I'm, excited about doing the Veterans Journey Home in June, that San Luna has started, which is at no cost to the veteran. And some of these processes have been invaluable, such as accountability pieces, and what's at risk. That way it helps the veteran do the work. The temptation is to get involved and help them through the work, and that's not what we're about. That's what being a mentor means to me, and I just basically share my experience, my strength, and my hope. And I like the part about being a good listener. So sometimes breathing is helpful.
Thank you, Duane. Now I'd like to open it up if anybody has any questions. We've got just a couple minutes. Does anybody have any questions about mentoring or what we're doing in Harris County? Yes, sir.
Well, thank you guys for doing what you're doing for veterans and for yourselves, but I guess from a kind of logistical point of view, can you give me an idea of how much time per week you spend each part of your mentoring?
For me, I work right down the road for a nonprofit, so it's part of my job description, and it was great that I found the job. I roll it into work, and everything. For me, it's perfect, but I don't know.
I'd say for guidelines, the initial guidelines, about max 3 to 4 mentees for a mentor, and that's even on the high end. And coordinating all this is absolutely a full-time job, and I could use a coordinator. But yeah, once you get past 3, it's hard to deliver high-touch level service to these folks, because for many they don't have cars, wheels, or access to that. So to be able to provide transportation, do that effectively, and then at the same time, there's just a lot of coordination involved, and then making sure folks have everything needed.
Before I answer your question, what is your name, sir?
I'm Steve Holiday from the VA. Hi.
Hi, Steve. Will use an acronym that we use in the military. Situation will dictate. Sometimes the needs of one veteran by far outweigh the needs of others. That sometimes it varies. Sometimes they need someone to go with them to their first meeting, and then So thanks.
I saw a hand raised with the Stetson over there.
I live out in the middle of nowhere. I live in Amarillo. Nobody wants to come to Amarillo for a program like this. How do you get a program like this started in a...
So there's an incredible network in Texas called the Military Veteran Peer Network, and there's a volunteer coordinator out of Amarillo, and I will put you in touch with her, and you guys will connect, and I'm pretty sure she'll be open to supporting something like this in Amarillo. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You in the back, white shirt.
Stephen Harris, the Donald County Treatment Board. I'm the mental coordinator, and my question is, what type of aftercare program have you been able to establish for your court system, especially for graduates? What do you look forward to after you graduate? Are you still on probation, or your release? And what type of process do you use to go ahead and follow up on after you leave the Veterans Court system?
Go ahead.
For most individuals going through the court, your time spent on going through the program coincides with the probation. So you're on probation, and basically by the time that that's done, you've graduated. And so, and then from then, for me, I still stayed involved, did the mentoring, and that was what I did. I mean, you're not mandated to do anything after you're released, but I mean, that was mine.
So in my conception of this, there's actually 3 phases to a mentoring program. There's the actual mentoring team, there's a family outreach team, and there's an alumni outreach team. Right now I'm working with the Wounded Warrior Project and developing a system of surveys and truly seeing what metrics and needs are of the veterans and the families in the alumni stage, post-graduation. And so, and that'll be concluded here in about 3 weeks. When I have that, I'd be happy to share it with you. And a part of that is outreach and engagement of alums, of those who have graduated. And so the next phase of this also is just doing a simple newsletter, and then at the same time doing camaraderie events where alumni are welcome at the same time, graduates are welcome. And so in using existing community resources and organizations and a bit of their programming just to support graduates of Veterans Court, you see, if you go back to your community and find an organization to do something just for graduates of Veterans Court, they'd be open to do it. And soon you begin to see and assess their needs and be able to fill that gap right there, because that's a huge part. And we're trying to fight recidivism, and so reaching out to the post-grads is absolutely critical.
I'm going to stop this just because I want to be respectful of the time, and we've got time that you all are here, right? People can follow up and ask you some questions. Let me say, Tony, thanks for pulling this together, and gentlemen, thank you so much for your courage to do what you've done and to go keep what you've done and follow through with